Welcome to the party. I'm Sam Ekstrom. On today's mailbag show, a 3-team trade, Kirk, Trey Lance, and Lamar. We'll break that down with Reggie Wilson next.
Locked On Sports Minnesota Podcasts. It's endless Minnesota Vikings talk with the diverse voices of your local experts. It's time for the Minnesota Football Party. It's your guys hanging out talking next level Vikings football. So join in with Pro Football Network's Arif Hassan, Locked On Vikings Luke Braun, Superior Sports Talk's Luke Inman, and Vikings insider Sam Ekstrom, plus the biggest names in Minnesota football for the Minnesota Football Party. And it starts now.
The Wednesday mailbag edition is here. I'm Sam Ekstrom of Locked On Sports Minnesota. Find me on Twitter at Sam Ekstrom. Our Wednesday regular, Reggie Wilson, KARE11 Sports Director, joins us to answer your fan questions about the Minnesota Vikings. He's on Twitter at Reggie Wilson TV. Luke Inman, he's got puppy problems this morning. We're thinking about Rosie Spinman, the dog, and hopefully she's all right. So no Luke this morning. Me and Reggie talking Vikings for the next half hour or so. Reggie, good morning.
Good morning, Sam. How's it going?
Going well. Plenty to get to in today's show. We're talking theoretical trade scenarios with the quarterbacks. We've got some free agency talk and an outlook on Dalvin Cook as we stand today. Today's show is brought to you by FanDuel Sportsbook, the official sportsbook partner of Locked On. Make every moment more at FanDuel.com/LockedOn to get started. You know, as we speak, KJ Osborne is holding court over, I think he's probably at his residence, wherever he lives in the offseason, but talking about a crazy story where he saved someone from a burning vehicle a couple nights ago. KJ Osborne is a hero, you might say. He and his Uber driver. And I saw the pictures of the scene. Like, this car is in embers, like it is burnt to a crisp, and apparently KJ and a couple others hauled someone to safety. So I mean, that for Vikings news in the offseason, that's not something you see every day.
No, it's not. It sounds like he was down there in Austin, Texas, training, getting that work in ahead of next season. He's going to have that breakout year, Sam, because that's what you expect from him. And just one of those things, man. He was just a human in the moment. Passes by in his Uber going to wherever he was going to, and he looks and sees the car in flames. And, some people may have just been like, oh, man, that's crazy. And just kept going. But he decided that he wanted to help. He wanted to put himself in there and help someone and be a human. And like you said, heroic. Him, his Uber driver, a couple other people decided to attend to the need of the person who was trapped in the car, and they were able to rescue him out of there. And he said there was, he had blood on himself and all that stuff, but the person is okay. And, he saved the life. Not something that you would expect to see or do, but it just seems like human instinct kicked in, and, good for him for doing that.
Yeah. And KJ, for those that don't get a glimpse behind the scenes, he is like the best guy ever. Like, he really is. Like, if he becomes a face of this franchise, like if he signs another contract with this team, that's going to be the guy who people are buying jerseys of. That's going to be like the voice in that locker room within a couple of years, assuming that he sticks around here long term. So this question comes from Brendan, and it's relevant because everybody's talking about Baltimore right now. Everybody's talking about Lamar. He signs the non-exclusive franchise tag. He can negotiate with other teams. Baltimore can match, or they can let him go and collect 2 first-round picks in compensation. So Brendan wonders, would you pull the trigger on a 3-team deal that sends Kirk Cousins to San Francisco, Trey Lance and picks to Baltimore, and Lamar and picks to Minnesota? Would you sign off on that?
Nah. I think if you were the Vikings, yeah, you'd probably, be okay with doing that. But also the tough part about that is you have to pay Lamar, and they're up against it as it is with the cap. Like, they have a decision to make on Kirk on what they do with that, because they can't go into next season with that number. I want to say it's something like 48 million cap hit with Kirk. So like they have to do something with that anyway. And I know that they can structure these contracts in a way that helps them with the cap. So that could be a situation. I think the problem with this deal is you have two known commodities. You got Kirk, you got Lamar, but you don't really know a whole lot about Trey Lance. By the time it was time to really collect intel on him, he broke his leg and it was over. It was curtains. And so you don't really know what you're getting. So I don't think that Baltimore will be, I understand you get picks and all that, but I don't know if Baltimore would be cool with gambling on a guy like Trey Lance, where he seems to be like a poor man's version of the guy that they are trying to negotiate with right now in Lamar Jackson. And it sounds like, from everything that I've read and heard, it sounds like the Ravens are more or less just posturing here. They're like, you know what? We've come to the end of the road with how we're negotiating with Lamar. Let's let Lamar see his value in the open market. And he can sign a deal if he wants to, but he'll see what his value is, and we'll just go ahead and match that because, yeah, we're tired of talking to Lamar at this point. So he'll either sign this franchise tag, or he'll sign with someone else, or he'll see what his value is on the open market based on what others are, offering and doing, and he'll decide like, oh yeah, Baltimore is where I need to be. They're going to take care of me. I think the problem right now is there's a lot of collusion talk in the NFL, because you saw how like 5 different teams through sources came out yesterday saying that, oh,
Yeah.
we're not interested in Lamar Jackson's services. And I think that is so weird, to get into like the Brian Windhorse, why is that? Why is that? Like, what's going on in Utah? What's going on in Baltimore? Like, I don't really know what's going on there, but like, with people talking about the collusion thing, I know Florio yesterday on PFT was like, it's hard to prove something like that because you just have to find evidence that usually is not there. It's kind of fleeting, up in smoke. But it seems like there's a little bit of an agreement there. The NFL is just like, hey, look, we want to keep Lamar, okay? Like, the Baltimore owner, he's just like, let's just throw me a bone here, guys. Like, let's let him like think he's in control on this one, but we really hold the cards. We want to keep the guy. So you guys can act like you're interested, but you guys are not really interested, okay? Just let this thing play out. And it seems like Lamar's kind of digging his heels in, and he's just like, they're like, okay, Lamar, what about this? He's like, Deshaun. Okay, but what about this? This offers some incentives. Deshaun. But Lamar, Deshaun. I want what Deshaun got. Yeah. And it doesn't seem like anybody in the NFL is okay with paying what Deshaun Watson got. It sounds like Jimmy D. Haslam, they were both off their rockers and gave Deshaun Watson that fully guaranteed deal. And the NFL, the rest of the NFL was just like, whoa, hold on.
It broke the market.
Let's not do that. That's not what we do here. You didn't consult with us before you did that. And also Deshaun from last year, I know he was knocking the rust off of his game, but he did not look like a quarterback that you would pay $230 million for.
Nope.
And so looking at this, I just don't know. And especially now that they franchise tagged him, I don't know that other teams have much of other recourse. Like, I don't even know that a 3-team deal like that could even happen.
Right. I don't know if that's legal anymore. You're right.
No.
You're right.
So that's kind of a thing. I mean, it's good in Dream World and La La Land. I know Minnesotans who are Vikings fans have been kind of clamoring for the outside chance to land a guy like Lamar Jackson, but I just don't think it's going to happen.
Boy, this is interesting. The whole Lamar saga is interesting. Like clearly something was going on late last season that kind of resembles what's going on with Cat right now, right?
Yeah.
Just like this very ambiguous timeline, stuff going on behind the scenes that you don't really understand, but you sense that it's not super warm and fuzzy. And obviously Lamar is a different situation because he was in a contract year and he's his own agent, and that muddies the waters. But I do wonder how that period of time kind of harmed his reputation around the league. Because, I mean, Reggie, look at this guy's resume. 5 years in the league. He's won 3/4 of his games, and he is a top 1% athlete, and he's only 26 years old. So in theory, all these teams that came out and said we're not interested in Lamar, these are all the teams that should be interested in Lamar. They're the quarterbackless teams. The Panthers, the Commanders, the Raiders, the Dolphins might not have Tua. So it makes all the sense in the world that somebody in that group would want this guy. So what is going on here? You know, what is happening behind closed doors? I'm so intrigued by it. As far as this theoretical deal goes, honestly, I would be more, I think, prone to like embrace this as a Vikings follower. I think if it was Lance coming back, like I think if you're really resetting if you're resetting things here in Minnesota and you want to get that quarterback on rookie money and do what all the other teams have done to sort of, you know, find their franchise guy, surround him with talent like Jalen Hurts and, you know, Burrow, and before he signed the big deal, Mahomes and Herbert, all these teams in the AFC are doing this. If Lance and picks came the way of the Vikings, I'd be kind of fired up. Like, I think that would be an acceptable reset to a lot of Vikings fans because of the connection they already have to Trey Lance, because of the kind of untapped ceiling of Trey Lance. We don't really know that he's good, but he's also shown nothing to suggest that he's bad. I don't know. Were you at the joint practices, Reggie? I thought Trey Lance looked very exciting to me. That is a quarterback with a cannon that I think fans would really embrace, even if there were some growing pains. Obviously, Lance is a very intriguing quarterback to me. Is he to you?
Yeah, I mean, I just want to see a little bit more though. And it sounds like out in San Francisco, they're not necessarily so like the things that they've been saying.
Yeah, John Lynch is like scratching his head like, yeah, we love Trey Lance.
Yeah, and it's like, hey man, stop that. Stop that. Why are you scratching up there? What's going on? Like I think the tough part is you would have loved to have seen more. And obviously they saw more in form of like practices, and you know, they have a little bit more on tape than maybe we do, just because, like, you know, what did he play? Like a couple games and then it was over for him. Like and then in the games that he did play, it was just like, like, but you know, he probably was just feeling his way around, and it's kind of similar to like Jordan Love. Like in the games that we saw Jordan Love, it was just like, I don't know. But then like when he got a little bit more playing time, you could see like, okay, all right, they could possibly move forward with this guy. And I think, yeah, like from a standpoint of like, oh, like we can build the team and have this guy on this rookie deal and all that. Like, I think that is intriguing, but also it's just like, you know, this is a new regime, and you know, they've stuck by Kirk Cousins. And I think if this new regime was going to go with a young developing quarterback, I don't know, maybe they would choose to pick their own guy, their own like new guy, instead of trying to do this thing with Trey Lance. But I do see a path there. There's a history with Shanny and Kirk, and so it's like, there could be something there, and that gets Kirk's money off the books and, all of that. But at the same time, you and I sat in that presser after the season and listened to Kevin O'Connell say, look, is this championship expectations? Like, we saw what the 49ers did last year, and they were hitching their wagon to Lance, but we saw their ceiling last year. So they had championship expectations. Kevin O'Connell said the Vikings have championship expectations. And if you reset like that, I don't know that you are expecting to go very far with the guy who's still young and developing, and you still need to kind of figure out who he is. I mean, he could be a young, burgeoning, Patrick Mahomes type. There was not a lot out there on Mahomes before he started his first game and wild things. But I don't know. I think that's the problem. He's been in the league now for a couple seasons, and you still just don't know who he is.
The 49ers are playing a game of The Bachelor right now with quarterbacks. They've got Brock Purdy and Trey Lance in their building. They've got Jimmy Garoppolo, who is like kind of outside the gate, but they're like, hey, come on back in, Jimmy. We want to give you a rose. Or Tom Brady, hey, Tom, you want to come on back? We've got a rose for you too. Like they can't keep everybody. They can't do it all. So there are scenarios where San Francisco trades Trey Lance, and I think the Vikings probably are in that discussion. It's very interesting, Talker. Plenty more to chew on. Free agency. We got a good Lewis Cine question from Michael about his role next year. But before we get to that, FanDuel brings you today's program and all programs on Locked On Sports Minnesota. FanDuel Sportsbook is America's #1 sportsbook and the official partner of Locked On. If you're a new customer, you want to get in the action on FanDuel, download the app, sign up, and get a no-sweat first bet. Up to $1,000 back in bonus bets if your first bet doesn't win. So many ways to wager. You can stack your bets up in an NBA or NHL game for a same-game parlay, a chance at bigger payouts. Very easy to use in the app. You can wager on golf. You can bet who's going to win the next hole out of a certain grouping. It's a lot of fun. Check it out, FanDuel.com/LockedOn, FanDuel.com/LockedOn. Get your no-sweat first bet today, up to $1,000 back in bonus bets if your first bet doesn't win. Make every moment more with FanDuel. All right, we got some good questions here. Let's kind of fly through these. We got 4 or 5 that we can touch on before this show's done. From Maurice, which need should the Vikings fill in free agency instead of the draft? So what don't you trust them to address in the draft, Reggie, that you would like them to just handle in free agency?
That is an interesting one. But I will say maybe corner depth, like I know a lot of people, some of these things that I've seen, mock drafts, things like that, have had the Vikings picking a cornerback early in the draft. And that's fine. But then we saw what happened last year when they picked the corner early in the draft. I know it's not always going to be the same. I mean, we saw like Sauce this past year was electric. Woolen from Seattle was fantastic. I know that it can be done, but I think if you want to move forward with, as aggressive of a defense as you think Flores will have, I think you need some corners who are sturdy and some guys back there who can really be aggressive and play well. And, rookies make mistakes, and I get it. Either you live with that, with them taking their lumps. I know a lot of people have been talking about Julius Brents from K-State, long, rangy guy.
Love him.
Yeah, he may go early in the draft. That could be a name that the Vikings pursue. But it's just hard to tell with rookie corners, man. You just never know. McDuffie had quite a bit of playing time in Kansas City last season, but I think he was still kind of figuring some things out. And so I think if you went cornerback or DB in terms of free agency, you could address that need, but also have a guy who just understands the game at a different level because they've been playing in the league already. And I think that's something to me that they could address in free agency as opposed to the draft. Not saying that they can't draft, but I think maybe as far as like starting corner caliber player may address in free agency as opposed to the draft.
Yeah, Kwesi said something very wise and very true last year. I can't remember exactly when he said it. It was shortly after the draft, that you don't draft for needs to fill the year of. You're drafting to team build. You're taking the best players, the best talents that you can find. That's why you draft someone like Lewis Cine, who doesn't have a clear starting role, but you obviously are banking up talent for the future. You don't count on rookies to fill in the cracks. And if you do, that's a big risk. It's a huge risk. We've seen very few first-round picks come in and immediately contribute in recent years in Minnesota. Justin Jefferson, it's kind of an exception. Like, that doesn't always happen that way. So I think that to answer the question, I would say if you have needs, by all means draft someone, but supplement in free agency. For instance, at linebacker, I think you can get a linebacker to fill in for Eric Kendricks in the early to middle rounds, but I would have somebody for $2 million. I suggested Corey Littleton earlier this week that can come in for a year and be a stopgap. I think that savvy veteran pickups in free agency, that's how good teams operate, is they stay lean, they stay financially flexible, they have those short, intermediate contracts they give out, and those bridge the gap to the rookies. I think that's how Kwesi is already operating, because you saw sort of those shorter-term deals he gave out in free agency last year. Jordan Hicks, Harrison Phillips, Chris Reed, 2 or 3 years, kind of a sweet spot for this new GM the Vikings have. From Michael, speaking of Lewis Cine, if he's healthy enough to start, any chance they move Bynum to a nickel hybrid role in the new look defense? He played cornerback in college. Not familiar if he can play nickel, could save some money and still pick up a cheap nickel corner. I did look this up. He did not really play nickel in college. He was a wide cornerback. But what do you think about moving Bynum around to make room for Cine, or vice versa, Reggie? Maybe put Cine in that kind of role.
Yeah, I can see it. You know, I think Bynum is a playmaker, and so I think if you find different ways to put him in and allow him to do his deal, I think that could work. So we're in this scenario, we're assuming that Harry is back again, right?
Yeah, let's assume that for now. Mm-hmm.
Okay. So yeah, I like that. I think what's tough about Cine is kind of the same thing that I said about Trey Lance. Like, you just don't know a whole lot about what he's going to bring or what he can bring. He never really cracked into the starting defense last year, or just in the defense much at all. He was on special teams quite a bit, and that's where he suffered the injury. And, you know, you don't know how he's going to come back from the leg injury. He looks like he's progressing with his rehab. But I think the tough part about, you know, forecasting that is we've seen Cam Bynum. We've seen what he can do. We've seen that he could play at a high level. You know, hopefully with this new scheme and with some different coaching, he could even get that much more over the top, because there were times last year where he was out of place. There were times last year where he, you know, left a little bit to be desired in his coverage. But I think the thing that you want to see this year is him take another step. And honestly, more than anything in that scenario, I just want to see Lewis Cine on the field getting significant playing time. They drafted the guy in the first round last year, obviously to be a playmaker on that defense. Like, I just want to see him out there.
Yeah, as do I. I'm with you. I think that Cine's health is a different conversation than Cine's ability to be a starter in this defense. I'm sure that his progress probably got stalled a little bit. Like, you can only do so much when you're rehabbing, right? Like, you can watch the games, you can study, but it is hard to get to replace those reps that he missed out on. So I think physically, he's still got a little ways to go before he's maybe ready to stand back there and basically knock someone out of the starting lineup or force them to switch positions. I think if anything, I think that you go into this season with a similar mindset, assuming that you have Harrison and Bynum. I think you find creative ways to use Cine. We saw in training camp 3 and even 4 safety looks sometimes on third down. I remember against the 49ers in the joints, they used Metellus, Cine, Bynum, and Harry on the field all at the same time. I think that you will see Cine. He will be seen, but I don't know if it's going to be in a starting role right away. I still think that he's the future after Harrison Smith. And hey, there's maybe a scenario where Harrison Smith isn't back, and then it's a different conversation for sure. Still got some more questions about the Vikings official cereal brand. And is Kirk's contract fair based on the market that we're seeing now with quarterbacks? After I tell you about Built Bar is a delicious, nutritious treat. And you can get it now in stores and all the great flavors, the 100% real chocolate. Yeah, you can get it in Walmart, pharmacy section. Go to Sam's Club, the pharmacy section there. Get the 13-bar box, get the 4-bar box, get the great flavors. Cookies and cream, double chocolate, coconut puff. We tell you about Built Bars all the time, and we're serious about it because these things are so good and they're good for you. A great supplement to your nutrition. 100% real chocolate, amazing macros, only 130 calories, 4 grams of sugar, 17 grams of protein. I love them for a little fuel up in the afternoon if I'm dragging a little bit. They are so delicious, and you don't have all the fat and calories. So again, it's Walmart, it's Sam's Club, pharmacy section. Get some Built Bars today. And of course, you can always order at built.com. All right, rapid fire, Reggie, to end the show. Shane, he said he's kidding, but I actually want to answer the question. If the Vikings had an official cereal, what would that cereal be? I mean, if they were better at field goals, Reggie, I think it would be kicks, right? But they're not. So is it tricks? They're not really a trick play kind of team. So I don't know. I don't know now. I mean, I'm conflicted. It's a good question, though.
You know what? I go Wheaties because they're good for you. At times, they start off strong, and then but if you leave them in the milk too long, they get all soggy and slippery and whatnot. You know where I'm going there, and so I think based on how they finished last year, they were in the milk too long, I think, and they weren't very palatable after that.
I feel like Kirk eats his Wheaties in the morning. Like he has like off-brand Wheaties though, like because it saves him. Like he's got a coupon. And he goes to the store
from Aldi.
From Aldi, yes, yeah, the off-brand Wheaties. It's just called like toasted wheat cereal.
Yes,
in the Cousins household. From Olivia, do you think Cook will be back? What's your gut tell you as of today, Reggie? Your updated instinct on Dalvin Cook.
My updated instinct. I want to say he'll be back. But I just wonder if they will ask him to restructure his deal again. Like, can you do us a little favor, Dalvin? I know he enjoyed being there. Kind of weird comment from his agent a couple weeks ago on Instagram saying that, if he had a coach who knew how to use him, it's just like, whoa, what are we doing? Are we headed for a split here? Do you want him to stay in Minnesota? But I think, I would. The trend in the NFL, though, is just getting a young back and having kind of like a platoon situation. So, like, I can see it if they decide that they want to go in a different direction. But I mean, the guy is he's a perennial Pro Bowler. Like, I don't know. I don't know that you just let the guy go for nothing.
Yeah, I think with all these guys, you probably have an offer. I assume that they approached Eric Kendricks and probably said, here's the offer. And Kendricks, I assume, said no. Again, I'm assuming. But when you have players like that, you probably always try. It's just a matter of how hard are you going to try? How flexible are you going to be in a negotiation? So I think the Vikings probably do have a number in their mind. And if they're willing to match that, great. But based on some of the agent comments, I could see them being open to leaving and trying out the open market and maybe finding a place that isn't quite as pass happy as the Minnesota Vikings' new offense. So I'm about 25% that he stays at this point, Olivia, to answer your question. Dustin, I haven't really read this one through yet because we got it pretty recently. With the QB salary average going up and Kirk not even being in the top 10 anymore, should we start viewing all these big cap hits as the norm? The total cap amount went up by the equivalent of 2 first-round top players. So I'm not totally tracking that last sentence there. But I think the gist of this is Kirk Cousins' contract, as it is today, it's pretty fair. Like the number today has been surpassed by so many other contracts that he is not an uber expensive quarterback. Now, he's not on rookie money. Like the difference between rookie money and second contract money is just absurd. I mean, that's why you want the rookie quarterback, because the difference. But I think that the conversation changes, Reggie, if he signs an extension, because now all of these big contracts have set a new quarterback market. And that, I think, is why the Vikings would hesitate to give him a long-term deal, is because now you've got Daniel Jones signing an average of $40 million per year. And I know that only half of that is guaranteed or whatever, but I think the Vikings are going to be very cautious allowing, Kirk to sign this new extension when the market has just been set so high.
I think the problem is his cap hit this year. They have to do something different. They have to lower that number so that they can get underneath the cap. Kendrick saved them $9.5 million, but they came into this $24.4 million in the hole. And so they got to do some stuff, like just restructuring these deals and all that stuff. That's not going to help them. Like they need to get well under the cap because, if they want to sign some free agents, they have to sign their draft class, like all these things have to happen. I think what you've seen is, I don't know if Daniel Jones and Kirk Cousins can even be put in the same sentence, which is hilarious to say because he chopped the Vikings up last year in the playoffs. But in the regular season game, he was pretty good too. But the guy threw 15 touchdowns last year. What I think we've seen is this quarterback market is just being reset. It's to the point where it's just like, look, the next man up is just breaking the last deal. And whether or not he is elite or not, it doesn't seem to matter. I saw a list yesterday that had all these quarterbacks on there, Dak Prescott, Matt Ryan, like all these guys are on this list. And between, I think it was like 12 guys, between all 12 quarterbacks, like you've got cap numbers in the high 30s, low 40s. 2 playoff wins this past season between all of them, outside of Patrick Mahomes, because Mahomes was on the list too. That's just kind of the going rate for quarterbacks right now. We saw the 2 deals that Cousins signed before last offseason to get him to that point. Like he's signing fully guaranteed deals, getting paid. It's just like if you are even a decent quarterback, you're getting paid. And that's just kind of the going rate. So like, I don't know that you're just like, oh, I don't know if Kirk is worth it. Like, no, like I don't think quarterbacks are quote unquote getting what they're worth. I think they're getting what the market is dictating. And if that's where they are, then, Kirk is competent enough to do what they need to do. Can he win them a Super Bowl? That remains to be seen. But we have seen that Kirk can operate very well in the offense. And so you got to pay a guy like that.
Yeah, like some of these big quarterback cap hits, they're just lemons. I mean, you don't want to be the team that pays Ryan Tannehill 36.6. You don't want to be the team that paid Matt Ryan 35.2. There is a risk attached where, okay, if you pay Kirk what the market says and Kirk plays like he did last year, and honestly, most years, I think you can say that you're getting your money's worth, but you don't want to be on the team that harpoons their cap and their performance by giving a quarterback that kind of money and not getting the absolute best from that quarterback that they can offer. And that's why I think there's risk attached to extending Cousins into a place where he becomes the new Matt Ryan. That is my fear, is that Kirk Cousins becomes Matt Ryan at some point, that he turns into a pumpkin, gets a little older, and loses his touch just enough to where he can no longer, keep the Vikings in games. So there's so many good talkers, Reggie. It's unbelievable this time of year how easy it is to talk NFL. Even though we're in the heart of the off season, it still feels very much alive. All right, we've got some other questions that we can save for a future week. No need to pack them all in now. I thought that was a lot of fun, Reggie. Thanks a lot for your input and your analysis. It's appreciated as always.
Absolutely.
He's Reggie Wilson. Find him on Care11 Sports Director. He's on Twitter at Reggie Wilson TV. Reg, anything big coming up on the Sportscast tonight?
We're talking KJ Osborne because, like I said, he's talking about his rescue that he had in Austin. He was on his way home to Miami, spending some time down there to train, getting ready for next season. He, grind don't stop. We're talking that. Timberwolves, less than, pleasurable performance last night. Wild. That was a disappointing finish yesterday after exhilaration, thinking that Spurgeon won the thing.
I know.
In overtime. Yeah, that's just tough, man. Just tough. But, we also are talking to the Loons this week, kicking off their season on Saturday, for better or for worse, snow or not, this weekend. So we'll be talking to them. And got an action-packed show on Friday as well, Care11 Sports Extra. Got a couple stories from Julia, a story from Will. Really cool, like Friday pre-selection Sunday story from Will on a star player from Iowa State who's from the Twin Cities, De La Salle High School star. And yeah, and Julia has a story on if anyone wants to be a Zamboni driver at Braemar as well. So that's going to be fun. We're bringing that to you this week on the Sports Extra.
Does Julia drive the Zamboni in the piece?
You have to watch to find out.
Man, okay, I'm tuning in for sure. Care11. If you have Comcast like me, it's channel 811 in high definition. I've got it memorized, got it locked away up there. That's Reggie Wilson. I'm Sam Ekstrom. Make sure you subscribe to the YouTube. Comment below. What do you think about that Kirk Cousins contract? We'll talk to you on Thursday with a Reef, Luke Braun, Luke Inman back in the saddle, and we appreciate you watching. So long, everyone.
Be blessed. Spread love this week.